It's a great Wednesday evening. Hopefully, it's warming up wherever you are. We're gonna get started with some basic nutrition. I'm gonna play around a little bit with a few features, so forgive me if there are any kind of blurbs going on here. But we're gonna get started. I wanted to explain to you a little bit about what nutrition is. I know that seems like it's probably a really simple thing to consider, but we have traditional nutrition, which is what most people think, and then we have the more emerging nutrition, which is integrative and functional nutrition. That's what I like to practice. So, what's the difference between a traditional nutrition model and integrative and functional nutrition? Traditional nutrition is a little bit more about making sure you have your food logged and you're tracking your calories. You may go to a dietitian and have a very stringent meal plan laid out. And one of the things that unfortunately gets tied with some traditional nutrition is you have really bland, boring food. More than that, the thing that annoys me probably the most is in traditional nutrition, it tends to be a little bit more authoritarian, meaning, I'm the nutritionist or the dietitian or the doctor, so do what I say, I know what I'm talking about, and then you kind of follow that blindly. That obviously doesn't work very well because with that, we see a lot of resistance. I mean, if you've ever tried to get a kid to do anything they don't want to, whether it's bath time or taking a nap, you know that the more you press it, the more they're going to resist. And the same's true for us, even as adults. We're going to be resistant to change when it's pushed on us in that more authoritarian way. We also see decreases in compliance because we aren't flushing out the real reason somebody is interested in nutritional modifications. So, unfortunately, that's a lot of the failures of nutrition traditionally. What we do with integrative and functional nutrition is look at the entire person. So, what we enjoy doing with this is take an empowering approach to making sure you are in control of your health. We like to educate our clients, our athletes. We like to empower them through that education. So they're the ones calling the shot in their health and fitness journey. That's the way it should be. I'm not living your life, you're living your life, so you should be the one calling the shots. I'm just the coach in all of this. So, in integrative and functional nutrition, we focus really heavily on a full body approach. We look at what's going on mentally for you. We look at different lifestyle factors and then take into consideration with that whole person approach what your lifestyle is now, what your desired lifestyle is going to be. We consider health conditions, whether that's something like diabetes or an autoimmune disorder, eating disorders, whatever health conditions you may have. And we also assess, which is a little bit different than traditional nutrition. I say a little bit, it's a lot different. We assess your mental, your physical, and your emotional readiness to go through this change. And what this does is it ends up providing a greater level of accountability because as a coach, as a nutritionist, I'm able to understand what those motivations are that you have. I'm also able to help you navigate these lifestyle changes in a manageable and sustainable way. Let's be honest, if you had a dietitian telling you, you know what, you got to track your calories every day and here's this crazy food log, count everything you do, anything that comes in, anything that goes out, and you had to do that every day and then report back once a month, you're exhausted. It's way too much work. It's boring as hell. So we get a lot of reduced compliance with those strategies. So what we do is we only throw a couple little things at you here and there and help you start to succeed with these initial changes, starting with some of the easiest things and then build upon that. And nutrition is ridiculously complex and it's highly individualized, and this whole one size fits all approach is not going to cut it for most people. And frankly, I mean, we try to overcome that in traditional models by saying, oh, here's a, individualized meal plan. Well, meal plans suck too. So that's not going to really work out for most of the people that we deal with. So those are the big differences with what traditional nutrition is and what we do with this integrative and functional nutrition. And that's what nutrition should be. So moving on, I want to talk to you a little bit about what health food is. I'm going to be doing air quotes like crazy, so just get over it. So health food a lot of times gets this really bad rap because it's boiled chicken and bland rice and steamed vegetables. I mean, how boring is that? Of course, you're not going to enjoy eating if that's all you have to look forward to. And that is not what health food is. Health food is not a salad or the rabbit diet or eating grass or whatever. It's not about bunless burgers. Health food is about food that helps to sustain your life. So, what is it that you're wanting to accomplish with your lifestyle, with your health and your fitness? And then, how can we introduce food, because food is the fuel that helps us get through life? How can we introduce that in a way that helps you accomplish those goals? Health food does not have to be bland. It does not have to be boring. There's all kinds of things we can do, from accommodating vegan diets, allergies. Unfortunately, I am cursed with the allergies. But we can accommodate all kinds of things through nutrition and through proper supplementation, which I'm going to get to in a little bit because I have a lot to say about that. And I'll try to keep that pretty minimal, and we'll have that discussion a little later. But there's a big misunderstanding that health food is boring food, and it's not the case. So I want you to understand that just because you may be interested in nutrition, you shouldn't have to be worried that I'm not going to be able to have this food that I enjoy. It's not about what you can't have, it's about what your body needs to fuel. One of the biggest things I get all the time, and any of you who have done a coaching session with me knows, the first thing I tell you is, I'm not going to make you give up beer. I'm not going to make you give up wine or any kind of liquor, as long as there's no other issues, obviously. Because nutrition isn't about don'ts. And we look through things through a scientific lens. And if somebody isn't giving you that scientific, evidence-backed perspective, you should be questioning if you should be taking advice from them at all. So alcohol is a great one, for instance, is outside of what I assume you know, are the typical issues if you have a liver problem or a mental issue with alcoholism. There's no evidence that says it's bad for you. You guys, if average size guys, you can drink 2 standard drinks a day without any clinical evidence that there's going to have some kind of negative consequence. Ladies, you get 1 drink a day. We're generally smaller, our metabolism's different, but it still means you don't have to cut everything out. You don't have to cut out fries and burgers. It's about balancing what food you're bringing in, the types of food you're bringing in, having that heightened education. My husband is being so loud and walking into the house. I'm sorry. But having that heightened level of education that helps you make better decisions when you are choosing food, and then managing the energy out. It's like a car, and you're trying to do a cross-country trip. You have to, put enough fuel into the tank in order to get you to the next gas station, and be able to fuel that car. We don't want too little, we don't want too much. We want to hit that just right level to be able to get us where we want to go. So that is kind of my little spiel about health food. Again, it does not have to be boring. Spice it up. Guess what? Spices, for the most part, they are free. They usually don't have any calories. So what's keeping you from putting a little bit of pepper on that chicken, right? So don't worry about having to have this bland, boring food. Don't feel like you have to eat a salad all the time. I'm a nutritionist and I hate salad. It's okay. I love my burgers. I'm not going to eat them every day, but I can still enjoy my food, I can still enjoy my life, and I can incorporate nutrition in a way that sustains the life I have. So, gonna move on a little bit more, uh, get into the dark and scary stuff here for a second. I do want to talk briefly about the dangers of nutrition and supplements. You don't want to just listen to anybody who's giving you nutrition advice. There's, in medicine, I'm sure you've heard, there's do no harm, and you may have heard things, and if you've ever looked at supplements and all, well, the FDA recognizes it generally as safe. Well, the FDA doesn't regulate nutrition and supplements the same way it does a prescription drug. So we have to look at things through that lens. And unfortunately, especially here in Colorado, we don't have any kind of requirements. And in the United States, there are, I believe it's 35 states, don't have any requirements for nutrition professionals. So that's kind of scary. Anybody can walk off the street, create a Facebook page, and say, hey, I'm a nutritionist, and not put any work into it. I know all of you at some point have had a friend or an acquaintance who got caught up in something like Spark Nutrition and, or check out all these vitamins and supplements. This is amazing. It's going to change your life. Take 20 of these a day. Give me $600 a month, and you're going to be like healthy as a horse for the rest of your life. I ask you, if you have something like that come up, ask yourself who this person is, like how are they qualified to give you this nutrition? I mean, let's be real. If you're walking down the street and some hobo is like, hey, here, I got this great piece of pizza or something, you want a bite? You're going to be like, I don't want to take some pizza from some hobo. So, you're going to take that into consideration. And, you might be nice and take it, and then are. So why would you just take the advice of anybody off the street, or somebody who, maybe they're trying to start out their career and they got a job at GNC or Vitamin World or, a health section at Whole Foods. Uh, but if they go through any training, it is specific for the products they sell. So what are their motivations? Can they give you actual peer-reviewed scientific evidence that these things are safe, that these things are effective? These are just some things to consider. I'm going to go a lot more into detail with this in just a bit. And so let's kind of come back to making sure you are getting somebody that you trust, that you can trust, and who is educated. Unfortunately, there are things that you can do to harm yourself with taking in food and taking in these dietary supplements. And there's a lot of really complicated information out there, a lot of contradictory information. So it's important to have someone who takes a lot of pride in continuing education, who reads a lot of emerging research, or like me, does research. You don't want to just take anybody's advice on that, because as we may think, oh, it's not a big deal, it's just food, or it's a natural supplement, it's fine. The things we put into our body can cause harm. And if you don't believe me, just look around. We have so many, what is it, like 70% now of Americans are classified as clinically obese. Well, they're putting anything in their body and it's causing harm. We're seeing diabetes and chronic heart disease and kidney issues, mental issues and disabilities on the rise. And a lot of this is traced back to our food. So I ask you, just take that word of advice. Be a little cautious about the advice that you're taking. So, dark, scary stuff out of the way. I'm going to take a sip of water here real quick. Now, the first thing I start people with when they come in for coaching is a mindful eating practice. So if you don't leave here with anything else today, I want you to leave understanding what mindful eating is. And it sounds silly, yeah, but it is revolutionary and it's easy. It doesn't cost you anything, just a little bit of time. So, with mindful eating, what we are doing is trying to take away the distractions. Uh, we surround ourselves all the time with, I've got to get my lunch in. I'm at work in front of the computer, tap, 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 eat, eat, eat. And we shove things down our throat super fast. We don't feel good about it. Sometimes people say, oh, I forgot I even ate. So we have distraction like that, or just sitting down in front of the TV. Or zoning out and being stressed. How often have you looked at a bag of chips, started eating it, and the next thing you're like, where did the bag of chips go? That's what we call mindless eating, and what that does is leads to binging and unhealthy relationships with food, other unhealthy behaviors, and it shows a lack of discipline in your mind. So with mindful eating, it's super easy. It's like marriage counseling between you and food, and you take a moment and you appreciate your food. Slow things down, eliminate distractions. So don't eat while you're doing your lunch at your computer or watching TV. Not to say you can never do that, but try not to do that like all the time, because you don't want to be really distracted constantly, especially when you're just starting these practices. So once you have your food in front of you, you have your distractions eliminated. What you do next is just basically be calm, take a nice clearing breath, and look at your food. Engage all the senses possible. Somebody on here, good friend of mine, was telling me the other day they had some fajitas and they mindfully enjoyed it because they could also hear the sizzling of the fajitas. And this is where you get to have this food poetry. So you're looking at it and what does your food look like? How appetizing does it look? How are the colors? And enjoy that for a second. And then worry about or focus on what's it smell like. Do you smell any new herbs or that lemon that you spritzed on at the end? Are you hearing the sizzling of the tasty fajitas? And then you want to take a moment to pick your food up, look at the texture. How does it feel? Even if you're not touching it with your hands, you can appreciate the textures of it. And as you lift it up, put it in your mouth, obviously taste. I know it sounds really silly, but how often do we just minimal chew, swallow it down? We're not enjoying that time we have with our food. So take a moment and pretend like you're a judge on Chopped or something. And even if it's with a spouse, a friend, your dog, yourself, take a moment, even verbalize it out loud. Oh yeah, I really taste the rosemary in this. Or that's a little bitter. I didn't realize that this asparagus was a little bitter. And just see how you can maybe critique the food and enjoy the way it tastes. And at that point, when you're finished chewing and enjoying it, go ahead, swallow your food, but don't stop there. How does the food feel when you swallow it? How does your body feel? Are you waiting for that next bite? Is it something really exciting for you? So that's a great introductory way to get into mindful eating. Not only are we appreciating our food, which I very much, with a farming background, believe we should appreciate the food that either gave up its life or was grown for us. It helps us to reconnect to what food does in our lives. If we didn't have it, we'd cease to exist. This is literally the substance that gives us life. So take a moment and appreciate that. You can, if you're not comfortable with the whole process, that's fine. A moment of silence or saying a prayer of gratitude, a grace, things like that are great ways to take a moment and consider the food, be thankful for the food, and go from there. Now we're going to move into the next phase of this kind of segue. So the last part of this mindful eating is being aware of how the food reacts with your body. And I encourage you, try this out for a week. And after you eat, for 20 minutes to 30 minutes afterwards, consider how your body is responding. Meaning, are you sniffling? Oh, that was spicy food. Or are you clearing your throat? Are your ears getting hot? Does your face feel really warm? Are you itchy anywhere? Are you starting to feel full? There's a whole list of things we can look at. Even how does your mouth feel? Does it feel dry, or do you feel like you have a lot of extra saliva? And this segues into the possibility for an elimination diet. So, when we're mindful of our food, we enjoy all of these connection benefits. We slow down our eating, which allows our body the time to release the hormones necessary to signal that we're full, to signal for all of these other cellular things to get started. And we also chew our food more, so the food we're swallowing is already a little better digested as it's hitting there, or better prepared for digestion. And then we're starting to become aware of what kind of things may be a triggering food for me. And the elimination diet is commonly used as a non invasive way to start recognizing food allergies or food intolerances. And the mindfulness and that little 20-minute evaluation is a great place to start. Because if you're noticing anything with your food that makes you feel icky, that's something you want to make sure you're noting. Put it on a little notebook. Ate spinach, felt, heartburn. And we want to consider those kinds of foods that trigger as something to consider in an elimination period. It's really hard to say an elimination. I think I got it. So with elimination diets, it's a temporary measure to try again to find these intolerances and possible food allergies, possibly to see how your body may be reacting if it has an inflammatory response to food. With this, I can give you guys the information with how to do an elimination diet. I just have a new program I haven't announced yet where I'll be guiding people through an elimination phase. So it's really cool. But with it, we start about 2 to 3 weeks, depending on some of the things we notice with, every food we eat seems to make us, stuffy or anything. It may be closer to 3 weeks. But we start by eliminating food, not all food, but these certain types of food that are known to create inflammatory intolerance or allergy type responses. After a period of that, we will slowly begin to reintroduce these food items. And as we begin to reintroduce these food items, we'll take note using our mindful eating practices. We'll take note of any symptoms we feel, or maybe we don't feel anything. And then we adjust through, we go through the whole list in this nice systematic way. And then at the end of it, we look at all of the information. Elimination diet will take about, depending on how much stuff and your reactions, anywhere between 3 to 6 weeks. It can take really big ones upwards of 16 weeks. I personally did an exhausting one. It took me 6 months. So you can go as little or as big as you want with this. But at the end, you have a better idea of the foods that may be triggering responses, not sitting well with you. And they all might sound fine and dandy, but you're like, well, I just sniffle here and there. But a lot of times we don't realize the effects that these foods don't sit well with our bodies, that it has on our daily life, especially if you, like me, if you're a cyclist or a runner and you are out there and you eat a PB&J 3 hours into a ride and then you start sniffling and you're congested, that's going to mess up your breathing rhythms. It's going to mess up maybe how your stomach feels, make you have to go to the bathroom sooner. Whatever the symptom is, you're going to experience that, and that might not be ideal. So there's a lot of good reasons. It's also a lot cheaper than going and getting a big comprehensive allergy panel done. While it's not absolutely conclusive, if you have any kind of financial constraints or fear of needles, it's a more accessible alternative to be able and get an idea of these food allergies than to go in and have the blood work done, because it can get very expensive. These even mild food allergy panels can cost about $250, upwards of $800 for a panel. So that's some of the benefits of an elimination diet. If you ever thought you may have food allergies, or just you can't figure out why you don't feel good with eating food, I encourage you to give that a try. Don't just go and Google it anywhere, because there's a lot of confusion on what a Whole30 diet is, which is an actual lifestyle diet that I'm not going to agree with. You'll see things for paleo diet, which again, I generally don't agree with, as this is just temporary. Diet is temporary. Whole30, paleo, things like that. They are trying to get you to eat this way for the rest of your life. And that's not going to work for most people. Some people swear by it. It's great. But for most people, that's not going to work, especially if you're an endurance athlete. Don't do that. I will have a whole other conversation with you about that offline. So now that we're good with elimination diets, we're going to keep on moving. Start getting into some super meaty stuff here. Multivitamins and supplements. Whew. So I have a lot to say about this. First, I just want to take a quick moment and let you know a personal story, that I had a family member several years ago who went to a supplement and herbal botany practitioner seeking advice. She had cancer, and as you can imagine, desperate times, you look for anything. And this person, who was supposed to be a professional, took advantage of that, which, again, what are the motivations? But unfortunately, this person took advantage of the situation and prescribed, yes, like a doctor, all of these different supplements, and saying, well, you don't have cancer, you just have this other issue, and I can fix all of this and I can cure it. She ended up having cancer, and she ended up passing away, and she didn't get all of the help that she needed. And sometimes the harm that we can experience when we listen to somebody who gives us a lot of false hope isn't just the fact that, it may interact with medications or our bodies, but sometimes it can help us from getting the proven effective care that we need in a timely manner. Not trying to be all doom and gloom here, but supplements and vitamins, this is not something that you want to play around with. People die every day as a result of poor supplementation strategies, over supplementing. People get sick all the time. There is clinical evidence with this. You've probably heard of all like hydroxycuts and these rapid weight loss pills, and those have been banned for the most part because they are not safe. They interfere with us on a cellular level, and that's not something you want to jack around with. So you don't want to just listen to somebody who did a 2-hour training for their minimum wage job. So when you are looking at these supplements, I want you to understand that just because it's marketed as a natural product, it doesn't mean that it's safe. A lot of people get in their mind that natural is safe. Natural is safe. Stop. It's not going to be safe just because it's natural, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple stupid examples here. Cyanide. That's natural. You going to go eat a fistful of that? I don't think so. Why? Well, it's toxic to your body. So, well, that's out the window. Natural gas. That's natural. It's in the name. You going to go drink natural gas? Absolutely not. And when we get in our head that just because it's natural, it's safe, we're opening ourselves up to, maybe not extreme examples like that, but we're opening ourselves up to, frankly, it's just marketing ploys. These people are trying to make money off of you. Something like 60 some odd percent of Americans utilize dietary supplements. You really think all of those are going to people who know what they're talking about? And like I said, people who, it's great. Everyone has their side hustle and everyone wants to get ahead with some stuff, and that's fantastic. No shade there. But you can't screw around with things that you're putting in your body for your health. okay? And just because they say it's natural, it's generally safe, doesn't mean you should listen to them, okay? And I get very passionate about this because people can literally die. I'm going to give you another example that actually does happen. Beta carotene. I'm sure you've heard, oh yeah, beta carotene's great for all kinds of, immune functions, eye health, blah, blah, blah. If somebody isn't careful and doesn't take a true interest in your health, doesn't do a complete medical history before working with you on supplementation, and let's say you're a smoker, and they say, yeah, you should take some beta carotene. You go, you take this beta carotene. Well, what they don't understand that happens is beta carotene actually activates phase 1 enzymes that you get from activated tobacco. Tobacco that is smoked becomes activated. So it goes into your system. You have this beta carotene floating around. And guess what it does? It starts to interact with the tobacco. And these phase 1 enzymes that tobacco has are the ones that are known for causing lung cancer. So it activates these enzymes from the tobacco much, much faster. And when there was a clinical study done, I think it was over the course of 10 years, they did this study and tracked beta carotene supplementation amongst tobacco and non-tobacco users. And you would think, oh, natural vitamin is going to be great. Smokers who were taking the beta carotene had a 35% greater likelihood of developing lung cancer, 35% higher incidence rate. That's a huge number when you're talking about something like lung cancer. And you would think, well, that's not going to have anything in the world to do with, supplementation. But it had everything in the world to do with supplementation because before that study, we didn't know that it interacted that way. So again, you want to make sure you're not just giving away this opportunity to have your body, ingesting these supplements and these vitamins to somebody who doesn't take a good clinical history. There's possibilities if you take the wrong kind of supplements or too much of it, and you're pregnant, there's a high incidence of birth defects. If you're giving too much iron to a kid, iron overconsumption is the #1 cause for childhood poisonings in the United States. So iron's in everything, and you see it all the time. Fortified with iron, or Centrum 1 with iron. Centrum 1 doesn't do it. I just couldn't think of another supplement brand here. But you have all of these things that can happen if somebody doesn't take the time to understand your specific clinical history and how a supplement and vitamin can either help improve that or harm that. And that's what's really scary is when things go wrong medically, they go wrong. We know that. So if you don't get anything else out of it, just don't take the advice of just anybody. At the very least, you can check some of the validity for these things yourself. You can do that really easily through go to consumerlab.com, or you can just Google Consumer Labs. It will come up, and they do major third-party analysis of all of the top brands of supplements. They have detailed information about what the supplements can do for you, what some of the interactions are, recommended dosage. And then they go even further. You sign up. It's a free sign up with your email. You do have to create an account. But you can go through and see all of the top listed brands. They do actual lab analysis of these supplements, which it's a whole other thing here. But they'll do the analysis to test the efficacy of these supplements, so you're actually getting what you're paying for. A lot of times we also hear, well, name brand is better. I'm not going to bore you with all of that stuff, but a lot of times these name brands end up being the worst supplements for us when we do a side-by-side lab analysis. It's the Walgreens and Target brands and Amazon brands or Nature Made or Centrum. These are the ones that are more affordable, but they also have the best results when we have our lab test done. And you get all of that information on consumerlab.com. Again, it's a free account. If you don't hire somebody, a professional, to help you with your supplementation plan, at least look there. Do not put anything in your body that is going to possibly negatively affect you. Even with a multivitamin, multi-mineral supplement, those are generally recognized as safe and it's great, but depending on the stage of life you're in, depending on your gender, you want to make sure you're getting something specific. Also brings me back to making sure you're getting a product that's tested. That's why I rave about Consumer Lab. A lot of, it's over 45% of all supplements tested fail the lab analysis. They don't break down appropriately. They have too much of minerals. They have not enough of the vitamins and minerals listed. Too much can lead to toxicities. Too little can lead to insufficiencies and these other deficiencies and can create other problems. So you want to make sure you're getting a quality product, and cost, high cost does not equal high quality. So those are my words of advice to you. Let me think if there's anything else on those. I can keep going on forever and ever about this. I get very passionate. The only other things I do want to just mention before we move on to some hydration essentials. Do just want to mention you want to be careful of anything that's imported, especially if it comes from China and Taiwan. They have very different practices over there, and we find consistently very high contamination rates. And that's one of the dangers with blindly supplementing yourself, is you can end up with contaminated it can be contaminated with lead. That's very common. Anything that's naturally occurring, it can be contaminated with. It can, certain botanicals are more effective if you have flowers versus stems, or roots are different than stems and aerial parts. So it's really crucial that we understand what we're getting and what we're trying to accomplish here. And you don't want to get anything that is imported. Don't go to like a Chinese medical practitioner unless they are very highly reviewed and you've thoroughly vetted them, because it's, like I said earlier, it is way too easy. Over 35 states don't have any kind of regulation for nutritionist or supplement providers. So it's really critical that you take that upon yourself and not just fall for these marketing Ponzi schemes. You're smarter than that. That's why you're watching this. I don't want to see you getting sick or hurt or wasting your money taking 27 pills that's not going to do a damn thing for you. So if anything, just shoot me a message, text, call, whatever, and we'll get you set up, and we'll make sure we provide a lot of other information to help you in the coming weeks. So moving on, now I'll get off that high horse. I'm gonna need a swig of water again. Hydration. So I want to address some common issues with hydration. I don't know if I can do some screen sharing or not here, so give me a minute. I apparently cannot. I am sorry. I had some really cool papers to pull up to help with some of this, but I wanted to talk about what dehydration is. So a lot of people think, well, dehydration means I just didn't get enough water, and hydration means I'm drinking enough water. And that's not true. Dehydration is a fluid state, not a water state. And so when we are dehydrated, we are lacking enough fluid in our body. And that can come from either not, drinking and ingesting enough fluid, or we're working out, have spastic diarrhea or something, and we're losing fluid. And with that, I want you to be aware of that, because a lot of people will go and they'll just pound water, within the quest for eternal hydration. And that's not the only way that you can get hydrated. I know for me, I get overwhelmed with it, feeling like I have to drink these enormous amounts of water. And that's not necessarily the case. So when you hear about hydration, think fluid, don't necessarily think water. And your fluid can come obviously from water, from teas. You can get it from the food that you're eating, especially if you're eating a lot of fresh leafy vegetables and fruits. Lots and lots of water there. That's why it dribbles all down your face when you bite into the juicy peach, and now I'm going to get hungry. Uh, but you can also get it, and I want to address this a little bit. You can also get hydration from things like coffee. And I say this specifically, not saying only hydrate with coffee. I say this because there's it drives me up the freaking wall. People read a book, not you, other professional nutrition people. Read a book or a paper. There is no evidence that dehydration is caused by caffeine and coffee intake. I don't know where that comes from. I mean, there is a point if you're bringing in so much caffeine, it affects fluid balance on a microbiological level. But you drinking coffee isn't going to dehydrate you. That counts towards that cup of coffee you have every morning, counts towards your daily fluid intake. And this was a really cool thing I was going to bring up. It's by Dr. Sophie Killer. It's paper stated no evidence of dehydration with moderate daily coffee intake. And this was done in a free living population, meaning real life people doing real life stuff. So if that's a paper you're interested in, I'm happy to share that with you. But don't get caught in the misinformation that coffee is going to dehydrate you. It might not hydrate you efficiently, but it's not going to dehydrate you. So with that, again, it is not water specific. There's a few things that can affect your hydration. Some of that is going to depend on the climate. Here in Colorado, where it's, right now I'm sitting at some 6,500 feet. I often go to over 9,000 feet. Really dry, less oxygen, less humidity. That's going to affect my hydration level. So I need to drink a lot more water than somebody in Houston. If you're watching, Mom, hi. Some of the other things are physical activity. Obviously, somebody going into the gym every day or doing long bike rides or doing a lot of manual labor, they're going to sweat more. Remember, fluid loss. And so we're going to need to replenish more. So that's an effect that we have. Also, if you're pregnant or if you're older versus a child versus an average adult in 20-40-year-old range, your gender is going to affect it. So there's a lot of these factors that go into hydration. And so it's really hard when somebody's like, you've got to drink, some people were saying like 6-8 ounce glasses of water a day. Well, there's a lot that goes into it. Again, we're not doing a one size fits all approach. Everything's individual and specific, and we can tweak stuff like that. So I'm going to give you some general guidance that might help you with your overall hydration. On average, for a 70 kilogram male, so about $1.50, they'll drink about 4.2 liters of water a day. If you're bigger than that, you'll drink a little bit more. If you're smaller than that or a woman, you'll probably drink a little bit less. What that equates to, and I think this is a really cool way to do it if you're a nerd like me and you love data and counting numbers and all that fun jazz, 100 milliliters of water, that's the amount of water it takes to metabolize 100 calories. So for every 100 calories that you consume, you need 100 milliliters of water to metabolize that, meaning to digest it and to transfer that into energy to fuel you going forward. So that's a few things on hydration I wanted to touch on. There was one other thing I wanted to read from a paper. So this is another paper done by Dr. Shaheen and Dr. Naila Shaheen. and this was in 2008, about the public knowledge of dehydration and fluid intake practices. And I'm going to read from the screen here just to give you an idea what it takes to get to that dehydrated state. So in healthy adults with a normal body mass, so that means, not really, not underweight, not overweight, water accounts for about 60% of your body weight. So we knew that. So this is where it gets interesting. A person can become dehydrated if they lose as little as 3% of their body weight from water depletion. The loss of body mass with no water intake is associated with poor memory and attention. And other studies have shown that a 1 to 2% loss of fluid impairs your cognitive performance and impacts your psychomotor and memory skills. 4% causes headaches, irritability, sleepiness, and causes you to breathe faster, and in kids can cause them to have an elevated temperature. Dehydration also impairs muscle endurance and decreases muscle strength, and a fluid depletion of more than 8% can cause death. So another really cool way that, especially if you're active, that you can keep track of your hydration, I do this myself, before an activity, like before I go out for a long bike ride, I'll weigh myself. I'll note that down. I go, I do my bike ride, and then I come back. So if I start out at 170 pounds on my bike ride, I get back and I'm 165. Where did that go? It probably went to fluid loss. So then I drink, for every pound that I'm down from my starting weight, I'm supposed to drink closer to 1 liter, but I drink about half a liter to 1 liter of water to replenish that. So that can also give you an idea of the rate that you need to be rehydrating. If you are actively doing some kind of work, like if you are out riding your bike or doing a run, you want to, on average, do anywhere between half a liter to a liter of water every hour of energy that you're, exercise that you're doing. The more intense, the more water you want to drink. If it's hotter, you want to drink more water. So those are, again, some of those climate environmental factors. Oh, hydration essentials done. We will move down a little bit. It's so funny. I'm sitting here trying to scroll my handwritten notes with my mouse, and it's not working because there's handwritten. Long day, right? So I get a lot of questions about how do I know how to choose the right snacks? And again, very individualized. I don't just want to sit here and say, well, it depends, because I hate when I hear that. So I want to try to give you a little bit of guidance here. First off, what do you think I'm going to say? Be mindful with the snacks you're choosing. Don't just blindly eat them. If you're like me and you cannot control your chip intake, get the serving, put it aside, and then eat what's only in your little serving dish. It's never big enough, but that's just me. But be mindful of the snacks you're eating. We get a lot of our calories from just snacking. There was a study recently done with the caloric intake for the normal American, and it was out of snacks, there's 828 calories a day that the average American gets from snacks. When on average, we're looking at that 1,700 to 2,200 calorie range, and our meals are supposed to be 500 to 800 calories a piece. We don't count for the coffee creamer or the soda that we drink. And then you're adding that in when your snack should be about 200 calories, 250 at the most, if you have well-balanced meals otherwise. That's an enormous amount of calories. You're eating entire meals. So be really mindful about the snacks you're choosing, and don't just blindly and distractedly eat them. Eat your snacks intentionally, and that's the number one thing you could do. It's really hard to have a bad snack choice if you're not overindulging. There's going to be some stuff. Oreos aren't going to be a great snack, even if it's in a 100-calorie pack. It's not as good as it's going to, as something else going to be trail mix or whatever. But then you have to be careful. Something like trail mix, which seems more natural, more like a whole food, they're extremely high. Nuts are really high in our calories. So It's really easy to sit there and take a couple handfuls of trail mix, and before we knew it, we had 400 calories that we ate. So be mindful of the calorie density. Um, it's also going to be something you want to ask yourself, why do I need this snack? Yeah, I'm not going to just give you an easy approach to choosing snacks because that's not how life works. You got to do a little bit of work here. So, why do you need a snack? And there can be a lot of reasons. And maybe it's, oh, I'm just bored and it's what I do when I'm bored. We obviously know, probably have something to work on there. It could be that uh, I'm feeling hungry. I need something to hold myself over to the next meal. So something like that, we may want to do something with high volume, low calorie. So air popped popcorn takes up a lot of space in our stomach, takes a lot more time to digest, makes us feel full without adding a lot of calories. Some of the other things, it's like, oh, I just have a headache, and or it's been too long between meals, or I've been really stressed. So that can indicate we may need something that has a little bit more sugar or carbohydrates. Could be a good time for like some hummus and pita. Do a little snack like that. It could also be I need a snack, and this is something I do all the time because I'm about to go work out in an hour and I need to be able to perform. And that's where we want to start looking at pre exercise nutrition, which is a whole other thing, but that can dictate the type of snack. So, ask yourself, what am I trying to accomplish with this snack? And then you can choose your snacks from there. There's no magic, and it's good for everything. You have to have a reason for those snacks, and then you can execute whatever snack you need to live whatever function you're trying to complete. Sometimes it's just getting through the day, and I don't know, maybe don't tell your boss and you snack on a little sip of whiskey or something, because you can have up to one, girls, up to one drink a day, guys, up to two. Just don't drink and drive. And then we're going to go into, after snacks, eating during exercise. I'm going to keep this one really, really short because there's so much into this. Yes, you do need to eat during exercise, depending again on the exercise. If you are doing a long endurance type sport, I define that anything over an hour and a half, then you're going to want to take in some calories. General rules of thumb: if you are doing over 90 minutes of a consistent physical effort, you want to take between 1 to 200 calories an hour, every 45 minutes to an hour. And you want to make sure you're not doing just the same type of food. So if you just keep hammering honey stingers or gummies or a granola bar, that's going to lead to the dreaded gut bomb, which leads to our favorite thing, spastic diarrhea on the side of the road, or worse in some cases, hurling. So we don't want to gut bomb ourselves. And we avoid that by mixing up the types of sugars. So you don't want just everything to be fructose. You don't want everything to be sucrose. Get a variety. You can maybe get away with it. Generally, again, it's all specific to the person. I have a pretty sensitive stomach, and I'm able to do about 2 of the honey stinger gel type very sugar heavy snacks in a row before I need something like PB&J sandwich or rice cake with some peanut butter. So as we get more into these ultra things, we do need to tweak that performance nutrition a little bit. And then the other thing I get as well, do I need to eat afterwards? And if you are doing under 90 minutes of activity, there's some evidence that shows, like, if you're weightlifting and all, protein does help. So I like to do a scoop of unflavored protein powder, a scoop of powdered Gatorade, mix it into a shaker, and I can't believe I just did that on camera. Mix it into a shaker, and then I'll drink that during my workout and then finish it afterwards. One of the other things I'll do, I may do a little apple juice. I do half a shaker of apple juice and then the rest of water. On really hard rides, Dude, I drink a Coke afterwards. Uh, you can have you want to have some carbohydrates to replenish what you depleted, especially during long bouts of exercise. But you don't have to do that in like 30 minutes. You can do that 2 to 3 hours. I wouldn't really push it to three, but you can do that between like up to 2 hours after your exercise and still get the maximum absorption for what you were doing it for. A lot of old data said it was 30 minutes, but all of the new research is showing that number's actually closer to the 2 hours. Um, Other thing you want to consider with nutrition while you're exercising, if you're doing something prolonged, you don't want to wait until you are hungry to start eating. Once you're hungry, uh, sorry, Fat Lady's already sung, and you're gonna be in a world of pain. It's gonna take too much for your body to keep up at your current energy expenditure, and that's what's gonna lead to the bonk, where you just basically burn out. So make sure you are experimenting in your training rides to know where that threshold is for race day, because that's horrible when you don't do that, and then you end up having to DNF a race. So 45 minutes to an hour for the most part will do the trick. Another thing is if you're doing like a honey stinger or the Cliff Blocks, one of those really sugary uh, performance fuels, make sure you're drinking your water afterwards. The water helps to increase the absorption. So make sure you're drinking at least half a bottle, half a liter of water during that. So those are my little tips and tricks for you there. Um, Another thing that you can do to gain a little bit better insight in your nutrition habits, yes, it's a food journal. But with a food journal, we're not going to go every single day. We just want a snapshot. So I suggest a 3-day food journal. It's super easy to keep track of, and this can give you an idea as to where you can improve with some of your nutrition. So, first of all, you want to put the date and what time you ate. So if you ate breakfast at 7 a.m., breakfast 7 a.m. You want to put obviously what you ate. I find it helpful if the person takes photos of their food so I can get an idea, because sometimes they think they're eating, some 16 ounces of spinach and it's only a handful that maybe weighs half an ounce. So that's really helpful. And then you also want to note how you felt. Going all the way back to the beginning of this conversation with that mindful eating, that's going to help you understand how food may or may not be affecting you. So 3-day food journal, that's a really great simple tool you can do. Doesn't cost you anything. You don't need anything special. You can type it up, write it, whatever. Um, so with that, I'm gonna start closing out. I want to let you know how you can get into nutrition coaching. Obviously, this is a very highly individualized field. It's not one size fits all. There's general advice that is generally practical, but we all have different lifestyles. We all have different uh, desires with our food. A meal plan is being individualized. It can be, but that's not the end all be all. You want somebody who's going to talk with you and understand you and is going to be a guide throughout your nutrition journey. Uh, Something I do is I offer a free initial consultation. We sit down, we talk a little bit about what's going on. I tell you some good first steps, and then we make up a plan that's going to work best for you to reach your goals. That's a really good practice, obviously, as I'm saying it and I believe in it. You might have people who charge upwards of, $200 to $500 or more for an initial intake, and that's pretty normal. But with that, you want to make sure they're really getting into the nitty gritty and not just trying to sell you on a meal plan or sell you on some supplements. Um, Something that we have that I'm really proud of is we have registered dietitians for people who do need meal plans who are able to do that in conjunction with either metabolic testing, special dietary needs, medical conditions. We can customize it for anything. And again, these are registered dietitians, so these people have to have a bachelor's, or it's now turning into a master's degree, and a nationwide certification to be able to practice nutrition and dietetics and meal plans, and they can work around any of that stuff. So that's a really great place to start. A registered dietitian or a certified nutrition specialist. Some of the things to consider: nutrition may or may not be covered by your insurance. Again, going back to the fact there's so little regulation in the nutrition field across the United States, sometimes insurance gets a little hinky about covering those services. They usually will cover if it's a registered dietitian or a certified nutrition specialist or certified nutrition counselor. Again, that's going to vary with your certain insurance, with the state that you're in. That's something, though, you can definitely ask. Worst case scenario, like, I'll give you an itemized and coded receipt that you can present to your insurance for reimbursement. But just be aware this may be a service that is not covered by insurance, and it could be a little cumbersome to get it there. That's why we need to advocate for a little bit more oversight with this. So it's kind of like the nutrition Wild West. Regardless, if you choose me, an endurance sports center, as your nutrition coach through all of this, again, pick somebody who is educated and experienced in nutrition. Pick somebody with a biochemistry background. All of this stuff works on a cellular level. So if somebody does not understand how the nutrition may affect you on that cellular level, which is where it's supposed to work, they're not going to be able to help you with advanced issues. And yeah, you may pay them $20 for their advice, or it may come comped with another service. But again, not everything is safe. Just don't assume just because it's food it's going to be safe. Just because it's a supplement it's going to be safe. Again, registered dietitians are the way to go. Certified nutrition specialists, someone like me doing a PhD in this level. You want somebody who has that higher level of education. I'm sorry, but just going online and doing an online nutrition coaching certification that takes you 2 hours is not going to cut it. You want somebody who's going to treat you as a whole person, who's going to take time to do a comprehensive medical background, take time to listen to you and what you need. Someone who's going to care about you and the journey that you're on. So I know that's a lot of information we packed into this last hour. If you have any kind of questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. I'll stay on for another couple minutes. Other than that, just send me a comment, text message 719-505-3924, email casey@endurancesportscenter.com. You can go to our website. Anything you could imagine, @EndureSport, all the social media. Let us know. We're happy to answer questions for you. I would rather have a conversation with you than for you to get overwhelmed and confused and end up getting yourself possibly hurt, or even just spending too much money or delaying the care that you need. I don't know how to work all of these lovely comment things, so let me see if there's anything coming in. I don't see comments coming in. That's okay. It's going to be saved, so if you have comments, I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for logging on and watching. I hope you learned something. I hope that you're encouraged, and hope that if you have any questions, you reach out. Enjoy the rest of your week. Go out, enjoy the great weather, and we will talk here soon. Bye.